Hey everybody, Dave here. Welcome to today's program. We are celebrating Christmas here in my house, and there you go. Those are my little boys right there, back when they were little babies. Love those pictures. Hey, we're so glad that you're here. If this is your first time ever hanging out with us, my name is Dave, and usually I'm joined by Steve Edwards. Today, Steve Edwards is taking care of friends and family, and so he asked me to put together a program for you guys that is one of a kind, special, never seen before, and will only be seen by the people who watch the replay. And so that's what I've got for you today. I've put together a bunch of clips from past episodes, so you're going to get a really rounded out experience from the last several months. We've taken a whole bunch of questions that folks have sent in, and we've put them into just a really great flow. So it's going to be a quick moving episode, and I hope you enjoy it. I do want to tell you that November 29th, that's next Tuesday, we're going to be doing a webinar, and it's going to be all about training your animal during the winter. So you're not going to be riding as much because it's going to be cold. You're not going to be in the saddle. You're not going to be using the saddle as much, and you might not be going out as much. And you don't want your animal, you don't want your donkey or your mule to forget everything that you worked on. So what do you do instead? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. Steve's going to take an entire hour to tell you what he has done in years past and what he has coached other people to do when it comes to training in the winter. So that when the springtime comes around again, not only did you not lose the progress that you made, but you've actually made progress and can enjoy an even better spring than the year previous. So I want you to sign up for that. I've put that link in the description, in the video description, so you can click sign up. You do have to sign up to participate, but it is absolutely free. And if you can't make it live, still sign up anyways, because we're going to send out a replay a couple hours after the event is over. So you can still get it and you can still watch it. So go ahead, sign up for that. And without any further delay, I hope you all enjoy today's program. And you thought I forgot about it, but I didn't. Have a very happy Thanksgiving for all of our friends here in the States, to all of our U.S. friends across overseas. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. And to all of our friends who are international, who do not celebrate the U.S. Thanksgiving, we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week and look forward to seeing you next week. Silky, question for you. I'm training a mule, and straight from the beginning, he had problems moving out even on a lead rope. He got much better at walking out. I started riding him, but it is hard to get him to walk out. He is happy to follow his mule or horse friend, though. Any ideas? This is a great question, Steve. What would you say to Silke?
Do you have spurs? Yes, you have to ride spurs, folks. Everybody needs to be riding spurs. Ride spurs. That's what helps them to move out and go forward. Will they try to depend upon their horse buddy? Yes, I was just talking about that. Will they try to depend upon their mule buddies? Absolutely. I was just talking about that. But if you want to get one to do what you want them to do, you have to have an accelerator. And that accelerator comes from your legs. And that accelerator comes from your spurs. So you're going to ask with your calf, tail with the side of your stirrup, and demand with your spur. Do you have to use the spurs all the time? No, you just use your leg, but the spur backs up what you say. Now, if you say, I don't want to use spurs, listen, you'll get to the one day when that mule won't even leave the hitching post, or that mule won't want to leave the trailer, or the mule won't want to leave another buddy. You've got to have spurs to encourage them to go forward. Okay. That's what you have to do.
Awesome. The other thing, in addition to that, if you haven't done your groundwork, you need to do that groundwork too. And I'm obviously Steve saying the spurs and everything like that, but wouldn't we want to make sure that we do that too, Steve, and do foundational work and make sure that we can control on the ground and get them to move on the ground as well?
Absolutely. You know, that ground communication, she says she was most likely, trying to lunge them, and a mule just don't see any sense in lunging. And that's why I suggest for folks not to lunge. And here it comes again, when it comes down to groundwork, what we have on the ground is what we're going to have in a saddle. So what do we have in a saddle? What we had on the ground. Okay. So by using the come along rope and teaching forward motion, you can do that. Okay. And so as you all see it right here, what you had on the ground is what you got in the saddle.
Do you recommend clicker training? So what's clicker training and do you recommend it?
You know, clicker training is really great for dogs, and it does okay for horses if you want to teach tricks. It's no good for the riding. If you know, a lot of people will use it's a little button, and it clicks, and then they give them some food when they do it right, and they click. I mean, we used them at the Phoenix Zoo to work with the rhinos and to work with the zebras. To get them to do things for a treat is good. There's not really a purpose for it in the trail riding industry. I can cluck on them and tell them to step to one side so I can climb on them. But clicker training is a great way to train if you want to teach tricks.
What would you say to someone who has a one-eyed mule, and what are the considerations that they maybe would want to think about as they're working with their animal?
Actually, I was talking with her just about an hour ago. And yes, folks, I call all of you, you know. Do I answer the phone? Nope. Nope. If I answered the phone every time I answered it, I would not get anything done around here. And let me just give you an idea. Yesterday, I had a water line break. I had my electric gate not working. I had my wife needed help with some plumbing around the garden. And I had some stuff to do with the fire department, and I had some other odds and ends, little things that need to get caught up. So yeah, I keep busy, and yes, I do want to call you, and yes, I want to help you. Now, let's go back to the one-eyed mule. She was telling me when I go one way, the mule does really good. Then when the mule goes around the other way, and she's talking about she's in a round pen. When the mule goes the other way, it doesn't do so good. And I said, ma'am, that's the same thing whether it be one-eyed mule or whether it have both eyes. It happens that way. They have two brains, one on the right and one on the left. They do not have the cranial lobe, which tells the right side what the left side is doing or the left side what the right side is doing. Doesn't do that. Now, other thing you have to remember, folks, is what you're trying to pack in there into that brain. You're thinking that's a pretty good sized brain up there, you know. I don't know if you've ever, anyway, I've seen them. And, you know, you're talking two pieces of brain about like this, but there's no cranial lobe in the middle, you know, so that one left side tells the right side what to do. They don't have that. But what there is, I get this, the information that's taken in is only as big as a walnut. Well, I bought 15-year-old mule, so he'd be experienced. Oh, really? You got all that experience in that walnut? No, folks. Just because he's 15 years old, 12 years old, 3 years old, doesn't mean he's going to retain it. And that also means that most likely he's been miscommunicated with, like this mule. Okay? Mule's a little hard to catch. Yeah. Has got white spots all up and down his back. Yeah. But not just sprinkled. This is deep, dark white spots. So somebody had an awful fitting saddle. Anyway, going on. This mule, even though it's blind, was basically in one eye, basically is doing the same things, identical to what any other mule would be doing with both eyes. Okay, remember that brain size? That brain size, walnut. Okay, now you can only pack so much information in there, so you got to pack the basics. Now, she had him in a round pen. I said, why'd you have him in a round pen? Well, I wanted to get to know him and this sort of thing. I said, no, that's not, folks, not the way you start with a mule or donkey. Putting them in a round pen and doing round pen work like we did horses is not the place to start with a mule. They see no advantage of going around in a circle, especially when I started asking the lady, all right, when you're going to the left, how do you stop him? I don't know. When you get him to start, I don't know. So I got lots of I don't knows. This is really important, folks. It's really important. We put them in round pens and we shouldn't. Now, if they're hard to catch, yes, but you better know what you're doing, because here's the thing. You approach the nose, then you're telling that nose to go away from you or come to you. Don't approach the nose. always approach the shoulder. Neutral zone. They think you're safe. You know you're safe because it's the only place around that mule that is safe, okay? And so you always approach the shoulder. Everybody approaches the head, and they put their hand out saying, "Give me your Fluffy, come on, Fluffy, come on." No, don't do that. That's what everybody else does. So now this mule, this one-eyed mule, has learned all the tricks from Mr. Black, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Blue and Black. And yeah, anyway, you hear me? They've already learned those tricks because this is why everybody does the same thing. They're in the same rut. So what do I told her to do? I said, get the ground communication kit. You all hear me talk about that. I don't care if you bought a super well-trained mule from this great auction and you watch this guy crack a whip and fall off and crawl between the legs and yada, yada, yada. Man, the thing must be trained. Well, there could be some training there. It could just be dog and pony tricks. But also remember, folks, after they've come that long trip, and a lot of people come to these high-end clinics or high-end auction places because they think they're going to get a well-trained mule. No, you're going to get entertained, for one thing, unless you know what to look for, okay? Get that in your mind. They may be well-trained, but do you understand what training is? And that's really important, folks, really important. You've heard me talk about the story of I would go to a clinic with my mules and I would show everybody this mule turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters, side pass, all within a 10-foot circle. This mule give me all 4 feet with just a light cue. This mule would load in a trailer. This mule, you got the idea? But I would say to the people, okay, who's been riding here 25 years? And hands fly up, person gets on. 15 minutes later, it looks like the mule is not trained. Yes, that's right. So here's the thing, folks. Don't fall for the dog and pony shows. You know, don't go to the high-end auction thinking you're going to get a well-trained mule. And one of the first things I hear from folks, Dave, is this. He's really a pretty mule. Well, pretty isn't always what it pretty should do. You know, here's the thing, folks. When it comes to training, you know, that training is there, but do you know how to do it?
Rusty is watching over on YouTube asking any advice for a complete beginner on possibly getting a mule for hunting.
Education, education, education. Go on YouTube, watch all the different trainers, make a decision which trainer fits you the best and use them. Because if it don't work for you, don't use it. But don't just go buy a mule and say, okay, he's a push button mule because that cowboy said so. Nope, not and nope. Every time we have a sale goes on, every time, all the big sales, all of a sudden I start getting phone calls and pictures. They said this mule did this, and they said that mule did this. And this is supposed to be in such a good sale where everybody is honest, da-da-da-da-da. Now, there are times, yes, that maybe somebody may have did something dishonestly. There's that possibility. But, folks, the biggest problem with mules and donkeys is me, you. That's the biggest problem. Now, you can watch some of these guys and some of these gals, and they ride, and they are good. They can make a pig look like a cutting horse. I'm telling you. But don't think because you've seen all that good riding out there that you are going to be doing the same thing. You are not. It's inevitable. I'd go to clinics and I would bring my mule and I'd say, okay, who here has been riding 20 years? Hands fly up everywhere. They just saw me ride this mule. They just saw the mule do everything I wanted it to do, everything. That person climbs on that mule that's been riding 20 years. 15 minutes later, it looks like that mule wasn't even trained. Not the mule's fault. You all just saw it. You just saw the mule being worked with. It's got to be your timing, folks. I know you see me do it and think, ah, pop, it's good. Yeah. It also took me 50 years to get there. Yeah, I never thought I'd be saying that 50 years. Wow. Anyway, let's go back. You guys have to think about this. It is your timing. Why do I tell you continually? Stay with the come along rope. You don't need a halter. You don't need to tie them up. Hey, Dave, that reminds me. Scott, don't we have a picture from Scott over in North Carolina?
Yeah, we do right here.
Hey, there it is. Here's Scott's mule, and Scott says this is his last hurrah. He's going to spend all the time with this mule. He's got all of my equipment. You can see he's got my, let's see, which saddle is that? I'm not sure. It looks like it might be the ultralight, my saddle pad and cinches and stuff, and bridge and breast collar. So now look here. The come along hitch is on the mule's head. He's been working this mule for a long time. Matter of fact, Scott, if you're out there, you can tell us how long you've had this mule and how long you've been trained on it. But look, folks, notice the come along hitch isn't quite right. The one that goes up over the ears, which is the second one there toward the middle, needs to be up closer behind the pole. And I told Scott that. But like he said, this mule is getting so good. Even if the halter, the come along rope, is a little bit misadjusted, the mule still responds because he did everything right to start with, you all. The come along hitch, the come along hitch, the come along hitch. Mules learn more by their nose than they do their mouth. Notice he's got the bridle on, so if the mule gets used to the bridle, got the saddle on, all these things. Good job, Scott. Congratulations. But that's what I'm saying, folks. Saddle them, clean their feet, do all the work. Don't bother tying them up. If they're really well trained, they'll stand still while you're doing it. Not a problem.
Silky, question for you. I'm training a mule, and straight from the beginning, he had problems moving out even on a lead rope. He got much better at walking out. I started riding him, but it is hard to get him to walk out. He is happy to follow his mule or horse friend, though. Any ideas? This is a great question, Steve. What would you say to Silky?
Do you have spurs? Yes, you have to ride spurs, folks. Everybody needs to be riding spurs. Ride spurs. That's what helps them to move out and go forward. Will they try to depend upon their horse buddy? Yes, I was just talking about that. Will they try to depend upon their mule buddies? Absolutely. I was just talking about that. But if you want to get one to do what you want them to do, you have to have an accelerator. And that accelerator comes from your legs. And that accelerator comes from your spurs. So you're going to ask with your calf, tail with the side of your stirrup, and demand with your spur. Do you have to use the spurs all the time? No, you just use your leg. But the spur backs up what you say. Now, if you say, I don't want to use spurs, listen, you'll get to the one day when that mule won't even leave the hitching post. Or that mule won't want to leave the trailer. Or the mule won't want to leave another buddy. You've got to have spurs to encourage them to go forward. Okay? That's what you have to do.
Awesome. The other thing, in addition to that, if you haven't done your groundwork, you need to do that groundwork too. And I'm obviously Steve saying the spurs and everything like that, but wouldn't we want to make sure that we do that too, Steve, and do foundational work and make sure that we can control on the ground and get them to move on the ground as well?
Absolutely. You know, that ground communication, she says she was most likely, trying to lunge them, and a mule just don't see any sense in lunging. And that's why I suggest for folks not to lunge. And here it comes again, when it comes down to groundwork, what we have on the ground is what we're going to have in a saddle. So what do we have in a saddle? What we had on the ground. Okay. So by using the come along rope and teaching forward motion, you can do that. Okay. And so as you all see it right here, what you had on the ground is what you got in the saddle.
Daryl sent a message in, and he must have been hearing you talk. He says, I recently purchased a downhill hip pad, trail light saddle, and bridle. I have been extremely happy with all three, and Steve's advice has always been invaluable. I'm interested in learning how to care for the leather and saddle bridle. They are in great shape and want to keep them that way. I was thinking of wiping down with clean cloth after each use. When cleaning, my plan is liquid saddle soap following by a light coat of olive oil. What do you think of that plan or other suggestions? Thank you again for all your help. Daryl. What would you have to say to Daryl there, Steve?
Hey, now, do I understand that that he found a used saddle and he's
He
trying to?
didn't say used, but recently purchased downhill hip pad, trail light saddle, and bridle. So it might possibly be used.
Yeah, who knows? But anyway, I always send a video, folks, and the video says prepare the saddle like this, and that's really important. And I talk about adjusting bridge and this sort of thing. I send you a video because I want you to know how to take care of your saddle, but I want you to know most of all how to make your mule comfortable. All right, and place the saddle in the right place. Now, and that's what I do. And then here's another part is the comfortable part for you. Now, people will tell me I need a padded seat because I put a lot of hours in the saddle. Well, if you put hours in the saddle like I have, 12 to 14 hours in the saddle, then yeah, you're doing a lot of riding. But I've never really used a padded seat until I started using my trail light. And be honest with you, I don't really like a padded seat for a guy. Guys tend to be forward in the saddle. Gals tend to be down in the saddle. But when I had my padded seat done, I had it lightly padded, and just so that I'd get an idea of what it's like. Now let's go back to the taking care of. When you get your saddle, you always take the saddle, take a spray bottle of soapy water, and spray the back half of the jockeys and the back half of the fenders. All right. Now that's if you got an all leather saddle. The fenders will be leather. And so here's the deal, folks. There's no difference between a custom made saddle, one that's made custom made for you, and my saddles. We use clickers. So every time we push a button, we cut out a piece of saddle. Our saddle makers don't have to go and cut every single piece out. Okay. Now, yeah, do they have to cut some pieces out for some custom stuff that we do? Yeah. But otherwise, folks, they still build the parts and then sew all the parts and nail all the parts and screw all the parts together. And there's no such thing as really a custom saddle unless you get into mega detail with stamping and this sort of thing. So here's the preparation. Soapy water, really important. A tablespoon of dish soap in a spray bottle, shake it up good, and spray the back half of the fenders underneath the jockey. That's the part where your thighs go. It's kind of rounded off. And then take and turn the stirrups and then put a pole in them overnight. Now, don't stop there. Don't stop there. Worst thing you all can do is oil your saddle before you shape it. When you want leather to be shaped to whatever form that you want, you have to wet it. And the thing about soap in the water, it helps keep the moisture in there longer, and you can oil right over top of it after you're done. So let's go back. I let it set overnight, and now my stirrups are twisted. They're not twisted correct for you as riding. Everybody sets the saddle a little bit different. If you're shooting for correctness in your equitation, then there's a few of you that are riding the saddle just perfect, just right. But unfortunately, most of us don't really understand what is correct equitation. In other words, how you're setting in the saddle and going down the trail, or setting in the saddle, loping and doing circles and this sort of thing in an arena. Now let's go back. Once you wet that saddle and let it set overnight, wet it again, and then go ride. And I mean wet it soak it like an old wet newspaper, folks. Soak it good, and then go ride. Now you're having a custom saddle because now the saddle is truly fitting you. You see, a saddle maker can't take measurements off of you and say, okay, now we're gonna have a saddle that you're gonna be comfortable in. You're gonna be comfortable if you have taken the time to wet the fenders and ride. Wet the fenders and ride. You may do it 6 months till you finally say, oh, okay, I got it like this. Now, I prefer a hard seat. Most guys, if you will hear what I have to say, if you tell me you're forward in the saddle, that means you're riding too much of a padded seat, and you really should ride a hard seat. Now, you adjust your fenders in order to be able to have them correct so that you correctly sit in the saddle. Now, if your back or your legs are starting to bother you a little bit, adjust your fenders up and down, okay? Now, you've ridden for 6 months, let's say, and you've been putting, every weekend, you've been riding pretty steady. And now the saddle's starting to say, yeah, you like it. It's the way you like it. Now you oil it, but only oil it from the back side, folks. The back side is the hair side. And that back side, it will suck the oil in. You want to do it on a nice warm day. I mean, that's when it's nice. It's 110 here, Dave. Put the saddle out there, put your leather out there, soak it real good, and let it set overnight. And then go ride again. Okay? Now, here's the key thing everybody needs to do. When you're putting your saddle up until your next ride, always turn the fenders, always put a stick through them. Always. Always. That way it'll fit. Okay? That way they'll stay and they'll keep their shape. When I put a saddle in a tack room of these trailers, and there's just very little room in there, I'll take my fenders, turn them tight, tie them back to the tie strings on the saddle, and I'll slide them up in there. That way my fenders will stay straight, because there's no way to put a stick in there, folks, traveling, going down the road. Now, if you do like me and Randy Figgins do when we're out ranching, we just jump the mules in the trailer with saddles on, and they do just fine. Matter of fact, we don't even tie them the majority of the time. If there's only like maybe 2 to 4 mules, we just leave them loose, and they'll turn and they'll look out the back, and they'll be the happiest mules in the world. But anyway, I gave you a ton of information, but let me tell you what kind of oil. Linseed oil on the back side. On the back side. Yes, you can use olive oil or Lexol, Lexol. And yes, you can rub it in. But remember this. If you put oil on that seat, you put oil on them jockeys and oil on them fenders, that oil is going to go on your pants. That's the way it's going to be. I can safely tell you, yeah, here it comes. Here comes the truth. Once I've shaped my saddle, and once I've oiled the back half of it, I'm done. I rarely do any cleaning. It goes back in so the flies can crawl on it and whatever else crawls on it. And I rarely clean on my saddle. Now, I get blood on it from cattle and hunting and stuff, and I get rained on. It gets it gets used and it gets beat up. Okay, so having a saddle for looks is not completely for me, but having a saddle that is easy to maintain and I can trust it, that's what means something to me.
Dear Mr. Edwards, I have a big problem with my little mule. I'm sorry for my bad English. I hope you understand me. Well, hey, we're glad that you messaged in. I think we can get the gist here. I have a little stable with 7 horses, 1 mule. Every time I get a new horse at my stable, the mule knocks the whole night at the panels so my neighbors couldn't sleep well. I don't know how to stop it. A friend told me I should use hobbles, but I'm afraid of this because I worry he'll get hurt his sleeve with this. Do you have any ideas how to stop the knocking from the panels? With best regards, Andrea from Switzerland.
Yeah, well, folks, when it comes down to mules and donkeys and horses, donkeys and mules are very subservient to the horse, especially the mule, very subservient. And when there's a new mule, the donkey wants to visit. So he'll paw and paw and paw. When they paw, they want something. He's saying, I want to go see this new mule. this new horse. I want to see it. Well, that's part of nature. And folks, when you have something that's part of nature, you can't take it away. It's there. So what would I do? All right, to keep the neighbors from being upset, I'd be doing something. But I would take the dog collar with a vibrating dog collar, and I would put it around the neck. And when you hear it paw, bump him with it. Only bump it. Just enough so that he tells him it's going to be uncomfortable. Now remember, I didn't say the electrical impulse. I said the vibrating end of it. Now, you're not going to get him to quit it, but you'll get him to start figuring out that when he paws, he's going to get vibrated. Then what's going to happen is you're going to have to kind of keep a collar around his neck, and then he's going to think, okay, when I paw, you're going to hit me with that vibrator. And so that would be my best suggestion for you, because he's going to do it. There's no taking it away.
It's in the nature.
At least make him uncomfortable when he's making you uncomfortable.
What kind of exercises can be done to lighten up the front end of a 17-year-old mule? Tends to trip a lot. Nikki from Michigan. So what do you have to say about that one there, Steve?
When a mule is tripping in the front end, there are a lot of things going on. Number one, Mickey, are you shoeing your mule? That's one question. Number two, saddle placement is incredible. The amount of people who call me with mules tripping, their saddles, and even before them, but their saddles sitting on top of the scapula, and the animals have lots of different problems. So I would ask those two questions. If we could see a picture of the saddle sitting on the mule, that'd be great. But that's when a mule's tripping in the front end, we look at shoes first, trimming. We make sure we're at the same angle. Anytime you trim your mules and shoe them, or just trim them, you always want to do it, your angles, according to the slope of the shoulder. So the slope of the shoulder dictates that. The downside is the back side of the mule's hooves are softer than the front half. So they wear down quicker and you have less of a heel. And then take this as your foot right here. This is called the quarters from here back. And that's usually the part where it starts to shrink in. So when one isn't been trimmed properly and they have contracted heels, the frog is now smaller and the frog pumps blood up and down the leg. And if you don't have good blood going up and down the leg, it's like a tire that don't have proper air. It's not going to go down the road right. And that's the first thing I would go to with your mule.
He is only shod 2 to 3 times a year. Trips whether he is shod or barefoot. Saddle is set up behind the wither's scapula. What do you say there?
How long have you had the mule?
Yeah. So next question there, Nikki. How long have you had the mule? And is there any other information that you would want to know from her?
Here's the thing. When, people buy mules, but we don't know the history behind the mule. So this Patty and everybody else, you see, it's just like any other type of lameness or illness. It doesn't just happen. It is coming. So conceivably, it could have been this. It could have been the saddle on top of the scapula back before they got the mule. It could be that as whoever it is doing the shoeing is like 3 times a year. That's not enough. And shoeing is not fixing the problem, okay? Just putting shoes on is one thing, but you have to be able to shoe in such a way so that you fix it. If the heels are turning in, the farrier is not doing a correct job.
Linda's got a question here. This is Linda Reynolds. She says, I have 2 Mammoth riding donkeys that I purchased from Oklahoma. They were trained to ride, but I have been struggling to figure out how to get them to accept the change, and even with the come-along hitch, they don't want to move. They are friendly, but they don't want to work. The bit they came with, they don't want to put in their mouth. Very frustrated with them. That sounds like my 3-year-old, my 6-year-old, and my 8-year-old. Y'all, I am in the thick of it. But we're not here to talk about parenting unless we're talking about parenting these mules and donkeys. Steve, what would you say to Linda? This is a frustrating situation.
Yeah, it is. And you know, Dave, I hear this all the time. These donkeys are supposed to be trained, or the mules are supposed to be trained. Folks, we can say the word, but seeing the end result, that's what makes the difference. Now, I can tell you that, like when my wife, we used to show my mule Stacy, and it wasn't me or my wife showing the mule. It was a young girl or a young guy, 12 to 14 years old, out there showing the mule. And Stacy is undefeated here in Arizona. She did great, but somebody else rode that mule, and somebody else was able to compete and do well. So if the mule is trained, if they have a good foundation on that donkey, if there's a good foundation there, then it's foundation training, and that's what's important. A lot of folks think trained is this, and I know I'm going to step on some toes. It's trained as this. You put the saddle on and you ride. That's trained. It's trained, and folks, when you go to buy a donkey, you go to buy a mule, and you want one trained, all right, prove it to me. Not just with words, not just words, but prove it. In a 10-foot circle, side pass, turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters, back up, stop. That is trained. It is not trained if some kid gets on it and goes down the trail. And unfortunately, folks, and Dave, here I'm going to step on some toes again. Unfortunately, a lot of people think because so-and-so said, I took and I had some kids ride this mule, this donkey. Worst thing in the world, folks. Kids want to get on it and have a good time, and that's okay. But building a foundation takes professional work. Not just climbing in the saddle, not just going down the trail. And that's really important. So, frustrating, I hear it. Start out first with ground communication. Go do exactly what I do in that video, and that donkey will move. Unfortunately, folks, there's a lot of people that just throw any bit or any saddle on them, and
doesn't work out the way they want and do a lot of damage in the process.
Exactly. You know, we talk about this all the time, Dave. They got one thing they fixed, but they created 5 other problems. And this happens all the time. So ground communication, go get the teeth done first.
Okay.
Get the teeth done so that they'll accept the bit. These sorry bits that they're putting in these donkeys' mouths are folks, they're just horse bits. That's all they are. We've got a different palate on a donkey. We have a different palate on a mule. We've got a different palate. And because we do, what do we have to do? We have to fit the palate. Now, it's not just the bit. Now, Dave, you and I were talking about this earlier about my double twisted wire bit.
We were.
And folks, a lot of people just want to buy the bit because they say they got the bridle. No, folks. The bridle has to be designed for the bit. That's what it has to be done. That's why I designed the Mule Rider's martingale. The way it's designed, it works and works flawlessly. But if you go and throw that bit in there and some other bridle, you're going to be calling me up and saying, dang, Steve, I can't stop my mule. That's why I don't sell just the double twisted wire bit. But so, you know, what to do with her, with her 2 donkeys.
Well, the big thing that I would say, Steve, like my concern, not knowing anything, is she said the come along won't work. And that's the ground foundation. So I think maybe we need to know a little bit about what does the come along not working mean. But at the same time, when someone feels like the come along's not working, where do folks make mistakes, or where can Linda feel like, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it this way this time because I'm not sure that I was doing it this way last time?
Yeah. I don't know if she bought the kit or not, but there's the problem, Dave. We talked about this earlier. They only buy the come along rope. They see a few short clips on YouTube and say, okay, by God, it's going to work. Watch the video of how a cowboy from Montana is working with his mule, and watch and see how I perfect him. So that come along hitch is flawless. You should be able to use it and work all the way through, no problem at all. If it's not working, I'm sorry. We have to go back to what you're doing, okay? Because that, I have trained literally hundreds, probably thousands of mules, donkeys, and horses with that come along hitch. It does work, okay? So if you want to send me a video, hey, Steve, that's what I'm doing. But let's go back to the very first thing. Did you get the communication kit so that you can watch the video how to do it? Okay. We don't want to just put that come along hitch on and say, okay, come along hitch work. No. There are steps that you have to take.
So she just asked a really great question, and I know next to nothing, but I know the answer to this question. She says, should I start from the beginning with them? And the answer is yes. Am I right, Steve?
Absolutely.
There we go.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to tell you, they probably weren't, quote, trained. They were ridden, but they didn't have a foundation on them. And that happens a lot with donkeys. Folks, donkeys got a great disposition. Hey, everything's great. Everybody says, oh, look at that, donkey's trained. Or they watch some kid get on it and ride it. And they say, oh, man, look how trained he is. A kid can do it. No. Start from the ground. Start over again and forget anything you were told and build yourself a foundation that you can lean on. Listen, in 6 months, you're going to have a completely different donkey, 4 to 6 hours a day. In 6 months, you're going to be off and running.
Mary wants to know where she can get a good looking or start looking for a good mule. So first, Steve, define for me what a good mule is, and then maybe just give her some tips on how to network with folks to go look for those things that make a good mule.
Well, here's what Steve says.
All right.
There used to be a song out, Make an Ugly Woman Your Wife, you know. that was kind of a fun song. But anyway, here's the deal. Folks, pretty is nice. It's nice to have a nice looking eye. But disposition, you buy disposition. Do not buy it because it is pretty. Unfortunately, you know, when folks go online, they see all these colors and this sort of thing. And let me tell you, pretty doesn't always get it. What does get it is, first of all, disposition. Second of all, confirmation. Third of all, training. Now, when it comes down to this, unfortunately, this mule order bride that we're getting on the internet, people are buying mules and donkeys and having them shipped to their homes. Now, you and I are going to be going up with the families. We're going up to Prescott.
Yep. We're going to get that planned. Yep.
Yeah, and we need to be doing that. We'll get it in the calendar sometime shortly. But here's the thing. James ordered this donkey. Oh, this donkey was supposed to have been there, done that. Not. James made a lot of mistakes, and he knows it. He said, Steve, I am willing to be the dummy so people can see the mistakes that I made and don't try not to make them themselves. So where to buy a good mule? You know what? If I told you, go buy this mule at this particular place, the downside is, will that mule get along with you? Is that mule going to like you? Going to want to spend time with you? Is it truly trained? In a 10-foot circle, did you see it? Turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters, side pass. In a 10-foot circle, did you see that? Or did you just see some 10-year-old kid riding thinking, wow, if the kid can ride it, I can. No, folks. Let's not be doing that. I cannot tell you where to go. I can't, okay? I can tell you that there are a lot, mega mule sales areas online. You can go to all kinds of sales all over the United States that they have up and coming. But here's the problem. It's good for me because right after people buy these mules, they call me up and said, I thought I bought a trained mule and I ended up with ABC. Yeah. Good for me, good for business-wise. Not so good because you just spent $8,000-$10,000 for a mule that's supposed to be trained. Now, folks, when you look on the internet, I want you to see, do they have a breeching? No breeching, we don't buy that mule. Do they have a rear cinch? No rear cinch, we don't buy that mule. Do they have the saddle sitting on top of the scapula? And here's the whole thing, folks. If they don't have a breeching, if they don't have a rear cinch, and if the saddle's sitting on the scapula, listen, they have no clue of the damage that they're doing to that mule or donkey. They have no clue. Don't go take him and spend the money, because right now, that mule and donkey's okay. All right? Get this in your mind. But when that saddle pounds on that scapula and they don't use a rear cinch, hey, I just had a lady call me the other day. She says, Steve, your saddle's making my mule's back dry back behind the scapula. I said, no, not my saddle, because my saddle don't touch those areas, okay? And so what she did was, most likely, we'll find out, I'm going to help her out. That's one thing I like to do, Dave, is I like to help folks, you know, get them figured out. Not just, hey, I'm sorry, lady, I can't help you. No, no, no. I want to go through the steps.
Right.
People worry about what is the width of the gullet. That's what horse people ask. But here's the problem. If you put a saddle up on the wither of a mule, you're going to be pounding on that scapula. It doesn't matter how wide it is, it's how it's designed in the front. My bars curve up in the front. We've got videos and stuff like that. Matter of fact, Dave, we got that one video that we did down at the Andrada, and you can see how that bar sets on the back, and it doesn't touch that area. It doesn't touch it. Anyway, let's go back to the selling of the mule. Okay? These are things to look for, folks. Listen, just because they have some cute little 10-year-old girl sitting on that mule, you're thinking, man, the only thing that does is tell me that mule's got a good disposition. It doesn't tell me he's trained. In a 10-foot circle, remember? Turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters. Now, veterinarian-wise, we just got a letter from a veterinarian in Texas. Did you happen to read that, Dave? It's really cool. And he talked about how this mule is now crippled because of the saddle. Makes no difference how wide it is. It's because it's a semi-quarter horse bars, and bang, 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 the mule's now crippled. And folks, here's the thing. You don't see that. And when a veterinarian does an inspection, unless you pay him to do a head-to-toe right on the gnat's bottom detail, he's only going to do the basics. That's all it is, okay? And so here's the thing. You're going to buy a mule. You make sure you have the scapula, have it x-rayed, and make sure there's no problem with that scapula. When this client of mine got bucked off 3 times. Now look, when you get older, you don't bounce like you used to. 3 times he got bucked off. Finally, he had a veterinarian do some vet work on it, and there it was. He paid good money for that mule, David. Paid good money for that mule, but because of people's improper saddle fitting in way back, he's got the problem, and he lost a lot of money. Not counting getting busted up. He's lucky he ended up in a wheelchair. So I will not tell anybody, go to ABC to buy a mule. I won't do it, you know. My favorite story is this, and this gets to be, you know how I get into this deal, Dave? You know, when it comes down to people buying these mules. My favorite story is, here's this lady, and she's on her mule. She says, my mule is stubborn just like my husband.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What's the problem? Well, watch this. Well, she rides off, and the mule turns around, won't go here, won't go there, and finally, the mule comes back over to where I'm standing. She says, see that? This mule's stubborn just like my husband. I said, well, give me that mule a minute. So I adjusted the stirrups to fit me, and I put my bridle on, and I climbed on that mule, and I rode anywhere I wanted to ride. She kept saying, oh, whoa, look at that mule. Steve's got my mule trained already. And she was just all, everybody's going, wow, see that? Steve's got that mule trained already. Man, I made that mule look good, Dave. She says, he won't go up that hill. He went up the hill. Oh, he won't come down that hill. He'll race down. Oh. Why I made that mule look good? She got back on that mule, and that mule went just a short ways, turned around and come back. She says, see that? Stubborn, just like my husband. And I said, no, ma'am, what we have here is the failure to communicate. I said, Dave, it can be a good mule,
But it's up to you, the rider,
Yeah.
to get it out.
Next question. This one came in from Julie. She says, my husband purchased a mule about 2 months ago. It's a Hinny gelded about 3 years old. Drives quiet nicely, but could use some ground manners. Don't we all need a little bit of ground manners? Have had horses, but never a mule. I have been watching lots of the training videos, and I'm wondering, is there any difference in training a Hinny because of his more horse-like features? Thank you for any information or resources that you can give me on this subject. We get a lot of questions about Hinnies, Steve. What is a Hinny, and then is there any difference in how you're going to train a Hinny versus a standard?
Okay, so a Hinny, the mother is the donkey, and the father is the horse. Where with a standard mule, the father is the donkey and the mother is the horse. There's no difference. You can put two mules together, two of them together, and say one of them's a Hinny, and people will say, oh, he's got smaller ears, smaller head. No. Has nothing to do with it. Still the same bone structure, because we still have the donkey involved. So there's no difference with ears, head, body, the way it's built. No difference. The only way you can tell it is a Hinny is when you do a DNA test. Only way. There ain't no other way. You may think and see, but it's not, folks. I've had a clinic, Dave, where we've had a Hinny and we've had a mule. And I would say to the folks, which one is the Hinny? And it was inevitable. The horse, the mule with the smaller head and the smaller ears, everybody thought was a Hinny. Nope, it was the mule. So that's the only way you could tell. So training-wise, I train donkeys, horses, mules, all using the same way of training.
All right, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It was great to have you. If you have not signed up for the event yet, next Tuesday, November 29th, would love to have you sign up. Look in the description for the video. You can get all signed up, and if for some reason you have a hard time finding it, send me a message, support@muleranch.com. I'll get you the link. It's absolutely free. We're going to talk about everything you need to know this winter in order to make sure that old Fluffy doesn't forget everything that you two have worked on over the course of 2022. Get signed up. It's free, and even if you can't join us live, you will definitely be able to watch the replay on demand when it works best for you. But until then, God bless, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you soon. Bye.